Dude, you are getting well. Dudes of all genders, welcome to the Dude Nation. This is Dude, You're Getting Well, and I'm your host, Ben Curtis. I am so grateful to have each and every one of you here today with us, whether you're listening live or in the future. You're in the right place, and we hope there's something of value here today that is for your wellness, growth, and purpose. And if you like what you hear, please let us know, send us a message. Don't forget to subscribe. And it is such a pleasure to introduce this next human who I'm having on my show today. I got to reach out to him. I believe the algorithms really brought us together. He some of those people come across and you think, wow, this person's, felt really aligned. See, he helps take people from pain to purpose, blind men with emotional attunement. He is an author, a therapist, and an influencer. And he's got a cool guitar too. His name is Logan Cohen. Welcome, Logan.
Oh, Deuterino, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing today?
Pretty well, thanks. How about
Are
yourself?
you also a musician? I'm doing great. I'm happy
hmm
to have you. You're a musician
Thanks.
too.
I am. That was one of the first places that I had control in my life, and things worked when I paid attention to them. Little kid playing in the orchestra,
Oh,
and I
wow.
loved it. And played violin growing up. That translated into mandolin because it's tuned the same, and then into guitar and interest in bluegrass, and played electric violin and southern rock bands at University of Georgia when I was younger.
Are you kidding me?
Ah.
What year did you graduate high school?
I graduated high school 2002 in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, so we definitely should have had a band together. I really thank you, the universe, for bringing us together. So I'm from Chattanooga. My sister's from Atlanta. I live there off and on, and I'm really into bluegrass and have a southern influenced band. Um, and I don't play mandolin, but I literally was just thinking of mandolin players last night, and violin's one of my favorite instruments. So it's really cool to hear. Got the southern influence in the house today.
Turned it
Uh,
up.
are you in Atlanta now? Where do you live now?
I live in Charlotte now.
Hmm. Cool.
So I grew up in
Charlotte,
Atlanta, well,
North,
Charlotte, North Carolina.
yeah, North
Yeah.
Carolina, just making sure.
Yeah, I grew up in Atlanta, then went to undergraduate school at University of Georgia. And then from there, at that point, I had a pretty solid alcoholism and addiction issues going on.
Oh, well, you
And
definitely would have been friends. I
yeah,
almost went to
probably
Georgia as well.
too good of friends, right?
Yeah.
And then realized that there was some significant things going on, and took that opportunity during the Great Recession to take a job that I would not have otherwise been open to, but largely at first to get sober from drugs and alcohol. I was working as a wilderness therapist with adjudicated youth. And at first I was thinking, okay, I'm just going to be out in the woods for a while. It's psychology oriented. Several of my friends that, I had as adolescents got sent off to these types of places. I should get these kids and they should get me. And we did. And I fell in love with the work, and I haven't looked back.
Wow, that's really cool. Where was this wilderness
It
experience?
was, yeah, it was in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains,
Hmm.
in a little teeny tiny town. It's not even a town, called Logap, North Carolina, about 10 miles south of Galax, Virginia. There's actually a significant bluegrass festival every year in Galax, Virginia.
Wow, that's so
So,
interesting. And what do you think? So I hear that you were kind of called into that. I mean, you figured you might relate to these people who are out there with you, and you're like, yeah, there seem like
I'm
my
pissed.
people. I
I was
got
just a
into
pissed off
trouble.
kid. I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what was the thing that led you, had you say yes to that? What do you think was the thing in you that, yeah, that said yes or sought out an experience like that?
I knew that if I didn't develop some very significantly alternate rhythms, then I was gonna get sicker and sicker, and it was gonna be awful. I grew up
Mm.
in a household that adults with untreated mental health issues and addictions that had gone unchecked for decades, and
What was that
wasn't
like for
willing
you?
to continue recreating that.
Yeah.
Scary and unpredictable, and fell in love with music and working out and figuring out how to make friends because that's where love and belonging needs are going to be met. And you know, it's a big part of what helps me connect to people in pain and who have been through similar experiences as well. It's kind of a that wounded healer story.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And when you found this experience in the wilderness and it was therapeutic, what was the name of it? You said it was a.
It was a through a program called Eckerd Youth Alternatives. It was the for kids coming out of youth detention centers and coming out of psychiatric residential treatment facilities. And it was state funded. It wasn't one of like the brat camps where they like grab kids out of their beds at night. It
Yeah.
was, like kids that when they go to court and like, hey, um, if you stay on this track, we're not even going to excuse you going from juvenile justice. You're just going to go right into jail. You want to try doing this and see if you can figure out a different way of doing things? And he was like, yeah, dude, screw it. And ends up out there in the woods with us. Um, and yeah, so it was really the kids that had a ton of adverse childhood experiences, almost always have intergenerational trauma legacies, growing up in foster care systems. Um, and I loved it.
That's so interesting. I mean, I used to want to work. I still do. I have a strong attraction to prisons, and um, I wanted to bring yoga into prisons and wellness and these kind of conversations to it. And I was in 12-step groups for a long time, and there's a lot of meetings brought into prisons there, and I saw a lot of guys come out of prisons. I actually sponsored a guy who was like, he said he was one of the main heads of one of the main gangs. He said, I've got like, over 500 bodies on my belt, and here's a guy asking for help. And I loved that too. He was a really sweet dude, and was not expecting to be forgiven, but looking for a way out, and or a way for to just try to make some peace. What he had time he had left here, but uh, what do you think about like what would you want to be when you grew up,
As a
when you were a little
kid,
kid?
I
Yeah.
wanted to be a rock and roll star, dude. I wanted, yeah, I wanted to play rock and roll. I wanted to be able to get messed up every night with no consequences, stay up as late as possible, and play Jimi Hendrix tunes, man. Um, when I first got to undergraduate school, I initially declared a psychology major and then felt the very real pressures of being a primary provider in the future and all that other stuff that goes with the manhood, um, social and cultural expectations that we're taught that we have to internalize.
Hmm.
And it was like, okay. And I went pre-law, did that for a semester and hated it. And then went to pre-med for a semester and hated that. And went back to psychology and kept loving
What had you not pursue being a rock star?
that. I think I love music too much. Like I couldn't imagine turning it into a job.
Hmm.
It was something I loved it too much, and I also wanted to control my love for it. Right. The thing at the first part of our conversation, I mentioned it was one of the first places that I had flow states that I had control over, and then no one
Yeah.
could take away from me. So it was once I realized I started like gigging with bands in Athens, Georgia, where there's a lot of that scene happening. There was money to be made. Parts of that were exciting as well, and I also realized like if I get Sweet Home Alabama yelled at me one more time, like I'm not even gonna be able to listen to Leonard Skinner anymore, and that would make me sad. So like I can't do this.
Yeah. And so what had you say yes to psychology or move into that direction from that place of like rock star mode to self-care? I mean, that really was from pain to self-care and to purpose in a way.
Um, I was always I was always the guy who people would come talk to about stuff. I'm imagining that you probably were as well. And I felt like I was pretty comfortable in that place and was usually able to see and or be patient with things in a way that other people couldn't be. And I found it very intellectually stimulating, and it helped me understand my experiences more as a kid, and seemed to be a lot of wins.
That's beautiful. And you're still doing it today.
Yeah,
So what is your like what is your um do you feel like you're doing the things you love now or could and actually let
yeah.
me ask you let me oh well yeah okay my brain's getting excited I have so many questions I want to ask you
You're
so
cool.
let me ask you that again, are you doing what
Mhm.
you love today,
Hell yeah.
and what does that look
I get
like
to
walk
be
us through a
with
day
people.
of Logan.
Yeah. So first, a day of Logan is get up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, do some like functional training and body wake up stuff for like an hour. And at that point, my 7 year old and identical twin girls that are 2 years old have started rustling around, and the partner is getting up, and we go get little people ready for their day. And it's a big dance party, circus, sometimes happy, sometimes more chaotic and anxious, and help everyone get out the door. And then I get ready to go to the office, and where I'm at right now, my counseling practice in Charlotte, and I go back and forth between seeing therapy clients locally coming in, with folks virtually, all over the world, um, and with any breaks, create content for social media or figure out whatever else is happening in the brave new world, as much as I get to control or be aware of. And while I'm here, I get to be with people who um, are going through it, and trust me and the services that I provide enough to let me be a part of that with them, which is like super humbling and awesome,
Yeah,
right? Um,
yeah,
so yeah, I love it. I think it's the most. It is incredibly humbling. It's I have some ADHD stuff going on. I get bored really easily, and no 2 hours are exactly alike. It's always changing, always fluctuating, and never know what's going to happen. That part's always exciting and interesting. And I've also got a part of me that is can get way too hyper focused on wanting to do everything just right. And this is the kind of craft where that's impossible. Like there are just so many different dynamics to it, whether it's myself or the other or the client or the interpersonal space between us. It is all so qualitative, evidence based. However, like it is a one big improvisational rock show, man. It's super fun.
I love that you said that, like how to actually bring some of that rock star in your everyday life. And I hear yourself like, if I may reflect the like all the permission you give yourself to do what you love. And you mentioned earlier how the point in your life when you felt like all that stuff that men do internalize and happen to internalize in our culture. I don't see many men. I think it's changing, but really giving themselves permission to do what they love or even know how to access that.
Yeah.
What do you think that's about, and what do you think this internalization is that men take on, and how do you think that affects us?
Um, so the internalization are these gender roles that both women and men receive passively through socialization and acculturation processes that we get to have no consensus in as little people. This is what's happening, and you either get with it or you're seen as a freaking weirdo and you get shunned or voted off the island. And humans are not going to do that. Some of those same operating variables are what, I mean, you can have, white kid from Western European background behaving in a very specific way, and then have black-bodied kid in Australia from Aboriginal roots who you can drop in the bush and he's a fucking human compass. Same exact hardwiring, completely different acculturation processes. It's really a huge strength of humans, our adaptability. But with that, we're coming out of a phase right now. So in the last 200 years or so, we've been in an era of the post-industrial revolution of modernization. Before that, we were in an era, anthropologically speaking, called the Neolithic Revolution, which was just all isolated farming communities. Think about it as feudal times. It was all warlords. Whoever has the pistols takes the pesos because that's the only thing that people knew was fair. And within that, men owned women. There was this huge food surplus, and it required these extraordinarily rigid gender constructs to maintain the amount of structure that's required for keeping everybody from starving to death in these feudal situations. Meanwhile, today we're maybe like 3 generations, maybe 4 generations away from that. But the more rural of an area you come from, historically, the more of that stuff is still in it. And if you think about, men and women internalize this stuff incredibly. Like you think about traditionally how, heteronormative example, if a woman cannot get pregnant, what a kind of existential crisis she's in for. And it's almost quite similar to the one that a man will experience if he gets laid off and can't find another job, or the loved one, he's out with a loved one and they get mugged and the partner gets maimed. They're not able to physically protect them. There are these certain rules and roles that we are so heavily force-fed that we don't even consider second guessing. We just assume it is part of our humanity. It has to be there.
That was really profound. I've heard about the Neolithic era and this ownership of land and women, and so I really appreciate you pointing that out. I've never heard it quite so. It really lands that for me that the more rural of an area we live in, the more these values are still present, and we're wondering why. And I know a lot of people in big cities today, and as elections show, and as depending on what news channels you watch show, there's really such polarity today, and really being taught that the other side is bad. And one thing I've been getting out of, I'm reading The Body Keeps the Score again, and really getting into that. I love psychology. I love abnormal psychology, looking at mental illness and trauma, having been a survivor of September 11th and some PTSD and addiction and stuff too. One thing that stands out is the author van der Kolk at one point is talking about that some of the problems in our society today is that when we've been through a trauma, we actually seek people with those similar traumas. Like PTSD, veterans sticking together to tell war stories, and I notice as the veil's becoming more and more lifted. I mean, I was in New York City for so long, but I'm from Tennessee, and I really see the polarities. That wow, we're seeking people with the similar traumas and that similar safety insularity, and it's keeping us really from learning from each other. We're actually coming to arms over it. And so I really am looking at how we can learn from each other, and what do you think we can do? What's resonating out of that? I'm sure you have a lot to say about this.
We have to learn to reclaim a full range of emotional intelligence, because these parts are so important because if we're not incredibly attuned with our own fear, shame, and sadness, we repress it and it gets projected outwardly as an attempt to control external factors that we have no business trying to control. It's more about the love of power, right? So if we've learned to attune to those feelings and we can operate more with the power of love and communicate in a heart forward way with other human beings, let's remember that human beings are literally fucking hardwired for that. Right? Like that's what brought us out of the trees and into the grasslands. This is when our brains got big. We had emotional resonance and grunting types of interactions as we went from getting our appendages ripped off by chimpanzees into hunting fucking lions. That was huge development. It's all still there. But in these isolated farming communities, we've been systematically taught to fear and be ashamed of and disgusted by other, whatever that is. And those lines of demarcation have been reinforced through tens of thousands of years. And
Mm.
now, as the global population is knocking on the door of 8 billion, there's no more isolated farming community. Now we have echo chambers, sure, but there's no more isolated community. We have a globally connected community. This was just shown through the latest pathogen that went through the world so rapidly that could not have possibly happened in that way if it wasn't the air travel, right? Like we are a globally connected community. And if we can relearn how to integrate what the great Gaia gave us as part of being within this ecosystem, we can turn this shit around. Or we can allow tribalism to keep tearing each other apart.
Well said. If I'm, one of those guys up in, you know, Saskatchewan, Canada, and there's like, just no help around. There's every guy is out there has this mentality and the echoes of this Neolithic era. I'm just a farmer, and my town is like,
Totally.
I'm just trying to survive, and the
My wife grew up
information
in
I'm
small town
getting.
Michigan.
Okay.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So if the information they're getting is like, the same, what do you think do you see any pathway or access or tools for us kind of men out there on the farms to
Yeah.
start to transmute this?
Absolutely. So I mean, first, like I wrote a book about this specifically, how to human up in modern society. It's kind
Well,
of
how
the
appropriate.
heal yourself and save the world. It's kind of my answer around male privilege to the white fragility book that came
Hmm.
out and helping
Can you show
fellas
us that one more
understand.
time? Just hold
Sure,
that up. I
sure.
want to capture
Yeah.
that and be sure we get to see that. And I didn't mean to interrupt you. Can you just tell
No,
us the
no.
title again?
Yeah, how to human up in modern society, heal yourself and save the world. I get really excited about teaching and intellectual and clinical stuff. Um, I'm really bad at sales and marketing, so thanks.
Yeah,
Um,
you're welcome.
um, so again, we're hardwired with the answers to this stuff. So once we can start identifying some of the shortcomings of a very rigidly traditional manhood, we can start defining, kind of redefining what we want that to be for ourselves in a more functional way. And it takes redeveloping belief systems and making them more conscious, which involves studying and learning and reading. And then a lot of the practical application. There's a lot of software updates that you're going to need, right? Like you're going to need to learn how to attune to yourself emotionally. So for a little boy, where that's like socially policed out of us, and what do we
Yes.
all hear growing up is like you when you get upset, you go towards a caretaker. They're like, you stop crying. Come back to me when you're ready to talk like a man. And I would say like 90% of men probably have avoidant attachment stuff for that very same reason. And so what happens is little boys learn to shun their own emotions and learn to be anxious about them and ashamed about them because what they mean to them is that they represent a risk of abandonment. As humans, we don't do that. Remember, like together we hunt lions. One on one, we get shredded by chimpanzees. So if that is the policing that a little boy is getting, he's gonna rock with it because that's what you have to do. So what you have layers to get through. Us fellas have layers. At first, it tends to be this kind of compartmentalization, numbness. If you stay with it, it gets anxiety. and then you're going to get shame or anger, and then you're going to get sadness, and then you're going to get down to whatever emotions is underneath of it. And at first, it's a process getting there. And over time, just like when you first start chopping wood, what does a city boy look like the first time you give him an axe and a fresh round of wood? It's going to look ridiculous, and he's going to have to have a lot of practice, and maybe even a couple seasons until he's chopping it. But if he's practicing and being accountable and asking, what he's doing wrong, especially that'll facilitate it. You can definitely learn new skills. It's just new skills.
That's great. I'm like thinking, how do we get these new skills? And if it's just not around us, if we're just not in those communities, I mean, the internet's a great thing, but the internet seems to be also because of algorithms. For those who don't know, if you look up, Ben Curtis, the Dell dude in Michigan or in rural Mississippi, you'll probably find a very different answer than if you Googled my name in New York City. So based on where you live, actually what you Google is going to bring different results from the algorithm. So we're actually getting results, like our own results back to us, right? So
and the algorithm's designed to do that. It's designed to sell you shit. It doesn't,
and like sell us back
attention.
to ourselves.
Yeah,
and it knows
that's what people buy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're being tuned in with Facebook, really being able to tune into our emotions in a way that they may be even able to track. Some people have declared, scientists, that can track your next moves before you know it, or track what mood you're in based on how, you're Absolutely. Moving, or all those things. So we can actually use this for our advantage in some way, I think, at some point, to really start to get real with ourselves, but notice, like, what do you think are some of the tools that can help us emotionally attune? That's something that I really love, emotional attunement.
Sure.
That concept.
Meditation is huge. And modern society is so go, 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 go. And something that even the Neolithic era had is there was downtime. There was going to be time to be present with yourself and your body and your heartbeat and your thoughts. And there was nothing productive to be done in that moment because there wasn't fucking wireless connection for you to log in and get what it was. There's no job, there's no work, there's no work. You wait until there's work. And what we're experiencing these days is a pretty unnatural level of go, 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 go. So meditations are any way that you can slow down for more prolonged periods of time to feel what the sensations are like in your body as you experience information or concepts that you resonate with in different ways. Like all emotion is just different types of energy connected to your natural intuition that's supposed to guide you in directions that work for your integrity or don't work for your integrity. You have to be able to slow down with that enough to learn what it is. The very cognitive way and physical way would be meditation. I'm a huge fan of journaling and just being very present cognitively with yourself and intellectually with yourself. You start to get more into this beginner's mind or Buddha mind or Christ consciousness, all the same phrases for it. But just understanding that you're the thinker of your thoughts and the feeler of your feelings. You're not your thoughts or your feelings. And if that's the case, who the fuck is that person? And that becomes the journey,
I love that. Yeah. Think of your thoughts, the feeling of your feelings, but you're not your feelings or your thoughts. It's a great question to be in. And I appreciate the tools of writing and slowing down. Of most men, of most executive, most anyone I'm working with today, gender aside, I see that we're so good at the go, go, go and productivity and working longer hours than ever and slowing down. Like, how the hell do I do that? I don't have time to slow down. That becomes, and then we have burnout and sickness and say, if you don't make time for your wellness, you'll make time for your illness. So it's like, we can't slow down. We've got to get things done. And then
it'll get you. And even the folks who are like, you can't slow down. We're like, well, I mean, if you
don't have time for that.
But like, if you work with someone who's high performing enough, eventually you're going to watch them hit phases where they don't have enough mastery to get through it. And what do you see them do? Slow the fuck down. Because they know that slow is smooth and smooth is fast, just like playing music growing up. So you find those two bars that you're getting hung up on, do that over and over again until it becomes muscle memory. And then you get 3 bars, 4 bars, 5 bars, and then you got the whole verse. And then you go on to the next. But it's sometimes you got to slow down to speed up.
I like that. So, what are the ways that you practice slowing down in your everyday life? You have kids, you've got a partner, you've got a business, you've got all these things you love to do, you have a lot of people you show up for. So, how do you bring slowdown into your life today?
Yeah. For me, that is exercise. It is being very mindfully attuned to my loved ones when I'm in the home. I can get easily, hyper vigilant and hyper focused on the checklist. So just probably every 20 minutes going, hey, you love these kids and these kids think you're so awesome that you can't even imagine it. Like you're not that fucking important. Be with them. And like literally it's like practicing it. And let's see, music's always a big one. I think the rituals are pretty important for me. Like routines that I know I can go into to ground and regulate myself. To kind of describe my morning ritual a little bit, and then in the evening, knowing that I can have everything off by a certain time and cozy up with the wife and either talk or watch whatever show we're watching and chill and scratch a dog's head. Is for me, it's being very present where I'm at and holding myself accountable to being connected as possible.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing those reflections and tools and just what it looks like in your life. Um, are there ever times that when you struggle with balance or self care today?
Hmm. Yeah, daily. Um, I'm not I'm not a self care natural. Um, I'm a kid who grew up hustling for his worth in a household with abuse. Like I'm not having space to focus on my own thoughts, feelings, and health wasn't something I learned from the jump. Um, a few minutes ago, I said, sometimes it is every 20 minutes reminding myself to be mindful and present with the people that I'm with because that's who's important to me and that's what's happening. Um, with physical stuff, um, I can get really attached to the way of doing things. I'm running into a phase of my own life currently where I'm getting into middle age. And I had always been a really physical, like extreme sports active kid. Um, and going from power focused strength training to functional training and mobility drills was like super hard to stomach, right? But at a certain
Yeah.
point you kind of run into a level of, okay, well, that's not working, got to figure out another way to make that work. So I think flexibility and accountability are important, and they sound like they shouldn't be on the same team, right? But if you can be
Yeah.
accountable to staying true to your values and what's important to you and your goals without having too many expectations about what it should look like when you get there, then you can be as
Mm,
fluid as possible with whatever abundance the universe has for you to pick that flow up, by the time you get there.
I love that. And I hear like masculine, feminine, that yin and yang, both the structure and the flow and that. And I think that's a really great tool as well to think about. You mentioned earlier anxious attachment or avoidant attachment style, and that you you thought on average about 90%. I mean, if men have that avoidant attachment style for the reason of, I love how you said that our emotional attunement basically being socially policed out, and and that learned behavior and how it's generational too. Can you just talk a little bit about attachment styles for those listeners who may be unfamiliar, and
Sure.
really what avoidant and anxious, or however you speak of them, show up
Totally.
as? Because I know, I mean, I love this. My wife and I talk about it. She's the avoidant more, and I'm the more anxious. And so it's really helped me. It's been empowering to start to see that. So I would love to hear from your perspective what this looks like.
Totally. So, um, attachment, kind of generally speaking, is basically the process by how humans learn to relate to other humans. And you have to learn how to do this. And it's incredibly important for our species, for how social and collective we are. And there's a window of time that you have to learn to do it, or it becomes really hard to do other things. You can change it. It can change over time as an adult, through corrective emotional experiences. But it's kind of like language development. Like if you don't learn certain things in certain periods of neurological development, with literally what's happening in the brain, the window crosses and it starts getting connected with other stuff, and it becomes harder and harder to turn it back. So with attachment, this is the style that we learn to relate to other humans with. We first learn to do this with our parents, right? So if our parents are warm and accessible, and reliable enough, we learn that they are a safe and secure base, what we think about as tribe and as home. It's really the same thing for humans, so that we can have enough confidence to go out into our environment and explore and develop mastery with new skills, move outside of our comfort zone. That's like how human beings first start doing that. Is you have to know that you can go back home, and when you skin your knees and fall on your head or get really scared, they can brush you off and get a circle on the spot and kiss and make it better, and like go back out there farther and more confident than you were before. So if that's happening, I think the research actually shows 30% of the time, the bar isn't super fucking high either. 30% of the time, you get secure attachment. So this translates into emotional availability. Confidence with emotional expression, ability to attune to yourself, to know that you can convey them with the people that you love and not expect to be shamed or blamed or judged, and that you can have dialogue with the other person, and that you can co-regulate, right? So in cases that with avoidant attachment, you have parents who are consistently not attuned to their kids, or like unwilling to respond to their cries in fear or insecurity, in pain, to self-soothe. Do not co-regulate with them. And generally, this is what parents are taught that they should be doing with their little boys to make them strong. You don't want them to be emotional or like sharing, stoic, all this stuff, right? So what happens is kids learn not to trust those feelings, and they learn not to trust other people, and they learn that they don't even know co-regulation is a thing, right? A lot of times when they are getting scared or ashamed, they won't even know what those feelings are, and initially what will come out is anger and withdrawal and aloofness. Is what they're basically doing is like, okay, I'm getting upset, and I already know that nobody in my environment is reliable, so fuck you, leave me alone. I have to go figure this out myself, because that's how it's always been. So it's more avoidant attachment. And then the insecure style of attachment tends to be parents or guardians who are pretty emotionally immature, sorry. So they get dysregulated very easily. They tend to be well-meaning. So a lot, like when they're feeling better emotionally, they try to be more involved, but a lot of times overdo it and helicopter parent their kids. And then other times are totally not there, aren't reliable when they're not feeling well, versus a parent that has a healthy connection, healthy attachment with their child. They're like, okay, I'm not feeling well. They're upset. I have a privileged relationship with my child. I can get over it, attune to this kid, and I can go take care of my stuff with my adults later. Like, that's basic responsibility as a parent, right? But the parents who are doing the anxious attachment stuff kind of alternate between helicopter parenting and not being available, and the kid expects the helicopter, so they're like start pursuing very actively, and they don't expect them to be able to regulate themselves without this parent at all, because it's so drastic going back and forth between helicopter and nothing. And kids do like the kindergarten cop thing on their caretaker, have a lot of separation anxiety, and the belief that they fundamentally cannot regulate themselves or be okay unless they have physical proximity, right? So then you have someone who has avoidant attachment and insecure attachment. You tend to get a really heavy pursue withdrawal cycle in that relationship, because one is going like, whoa, you're freaking me out. The only way that I can be okay is if I handle it myself. The other person's going, oh my God, how dare you withdraw from me? I'm going to totally freak out if I can't be connected with you while we do this. And it's hard.
And you just described every fight my wife and I have ever had.
I've been doing this for a while.
Yeah. It's until we finally got this distinction and we were like, oh my God, we've been having the same fight for 10 years. Because she's like, get the fuck away from me. And I'm like, if you leave me, it's over. Come closer. You know, like I need
Yeah.
So like I didn't even know how to self-soothe myself. I mean, it's so interesting hearing like even that you could read it straight out of a book and you're like, yep, that's it. Yeah.
Damn. Yeah.
So, I say that for everyone listening, like it's not always perfect, but as you find, thank you so much. I think you did such a great job that really resonated, and it was really clear, those examples and explanations. So.
When you hear that, it's like, oh my God, well, what the fuck do people do when you get to that space?
Yeah.
What I
question.
get off on the most working with couples is what you start seeing is what each partner needs to do to do their part in helping rebalance the relationship dynamic is actually what they needed a parent to do for them, and they're going to have to learn to do it for themselves. And then in doing so, they're actually doing what their partner always needed from their parent. So you're providing a corrective emotional experience for them while also rescuing yourself and being your own hero. And then y'all level up together.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love. So each partner really meeting their own needs on their own, and so that when they've started to reparent themselves, they're actually giving themselves what they need, and by doing that, they're giving their partner a healthier partner to co-regulate with.
Yeah.
Did I get it right? Somewhere around there?
Totally. Yeah. Like the hardest thing in the world for your partner to do is going to be to get vulnerable when they're feeling like that. Right. Yeah. And so they're going to have to attune to you in some ways as a scared boy who lives inside of a man that she loves incredibly. And she'll be able to have compassion with that. That is what's going to bring out most of her empathy. And that's what's going to resonate with you the most. That's what you always needed, right? And then once you experience this, the amount of peace and calmness and compassion that you're going to have in that position is going to be so much more patient with her. It's going to be so much easier to just contain space with her without pressing and pursuing. That's going to be the patience that she always needed from her parents.
Beautiful. And what's interesting too is it's the exact opposite with my wife and I. So I'd mentioned like she's more the avoidant, and so for those, I know we're talking about gender a lot too, and I think it is important because of some of these roles that men take on. For those men who experience being more anxious attachment style, what specifically might you say to them to help them learn to co-regulate with their partners?
So those self-regulation skills are going to be super important, regardless of whatever kind of meat suit or gender identity that you have.
Hmm.
Um, if you're more prone to the anxious attachment. So breath work, there's always a lot of meat on the bone with breath work. Again, journaling, developing stopping and thinking skills so that you can interrupt your own patterns of intrusive thoughts about whatever catastrophe you're telling yourself is going to happen if you don't make people stop withdrawing. Um, all the little, the little nuts and bolts that happen that are part of whatever is keeping you stuck, you get in and just start, one bolt and one wall at a time, figure out how to correct them.
Beautiful. Well said. And it's great advice. These are things I practice a lot. Like I really look at those moments like as how to, my wife has had to say, fuck you. Like I need space in order to like get me away. And I've needed sometimes be shut down so hard that I finally just deal with myself. Right. And it was in those moments I was like, oh, this is the opportunity to self-care. Like this is my moment. This is my time. Like this is actually a gift I've been
Yeah,
given. And my partner is saying, listen, like I'm going away to take care of myself. Can you do the same? And I just, I realized I learned that a healthy relationship looked like we needed to both come in and deal with it. And if we didn't, if we went to bed angry, that it was going to be over. And I actually, the therapist we've worked with said she was like, I love going to bed angry,
yeah, no,
because
it's not.
after midnight, you probably shouldn't be talking about anything, right? Like if you're not
Yeah,
having a lot of sleep, like you're emotionally probably not going to actually create a lot of
yeah,
solution or healthy regulation, and sleep may be the very thing that could make the difference in starting to re-regulate yourself, right?
absolutely. Sometimes you just need a REM cycle.
Yeah. Um, So I have a few closing questions for you. This has been great, and I know we
Sure.
have so much great tools and values that I know so much of our audience is going to take away. They're already resonating. We've gotten some great comments thus far.
Good.
So if your life, Logan, from this point were a Hollywood film, what would you name it? What do you think would be the title?
Um, to, I don't know, man, probably the title of this book, man. Heal yourself and save the world.
Nice. And if
Yeah.
your wife were to name it, what do you think she would title the movie
Um,
of your
I
life?
love him, but he should slow the fuck down.
Nice.
Probably.
Yeah. Another shout out to slowing down.
Yeah.
Um, and who, if you could cast anyone, who would you cast as your parents in this film?
Mm. My dad would be the I'm so bad with actors' names and so the dad and the American Pie eyebrows dad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's my dad.
Yes.
Um, the
His name's on the tip of my
mom,
tongue.
yeah, he's fucking comedic
Brilliant. Yeah.
genius, and his son apparently is too.
Eugene.
Um,
Uh,
yeah,
Eugene Levy, right?
yeah, he wrote Schitt's Creek, which is
Yeah.
also genius.
Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant show. Um, my mom would be, I don't know. My mom was the kind of character like she wouldn't be interesting enough. She would be so hard to like, but she what she was doing wouldn't be interesting enough to hold the viewer's attention. They would just be like persistently like, dude, she's me. Um, if Eugene Levy had just like a total ball buster of a wife who wasn't physically violent and underfunctioned, that'd be her.
Okay. Got it. I think that gives us the world of it. That's great. And do you have any hidden skills or talents that we might not ordinarily know about?
Yeah, I'm a pretty good dog trainer. I've trained three different dogs to pull me on a skateboard. Um,
Wow.
two of them pit bulls, who had
Wow.
like ton of they were super fun. Um, yeah, you can drop me off the grid in most places, and I'll be able to build a debris hut and a fire in 24 hours. Um, yeah, I'm a nerd, pretty physical. Um, also want to be also tend to be one of the first people to tear up in a sad or happy part of the movie. Um, like, there'd probably be a lot of things about me that would surprise people. I'm a pretty eclectic dude.
Yeah. And what's your favorite instrument today? You mentioned violin and mandolin and guitar.
Favorite, I mean, I like strings. I love all strings. Um, but I think my favorite instrument would probably be the human voice. I think it's pretty
Mm,
beautiful. But after
mm,
that, strings.
lovely. Well, I hope, I was just actually, I have you heard of Shikori Hills or Shikori Hills Grassroots Festival?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
my band just played there.
Really
Yeah, like a month ago. We were really close to
cool.
you. So I would love to connect with you if I'm down in the area again. I'll bring some
I'd love that.
instruments and jam. I really resonated with so much of what you shared today, and I really do think it'll benefit so many people. I know I got a lot out of it, so thank you for the
Yeah,
time. And it's
thanks
really
for having
nice
me.
to meet like a kindred spirit from the South. We made it out. We're alive today.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, your family sounds beautiful. What are your kids' names?
Yeah, my son's name is Samuel. He's named after my grandfather, who was an Auschwitz survivor.
Oh, mm,
And my daughters are named Hazel and Laurel.
wow, beautiful. Oh, you have three kids.
Mhm.
My goodness. How old is Samuel then?
Yeah, Samuel is 7. He just turned 7, and the girls just turned 2. We did not have
Wow.
plans for 3, but
Yeah.
we had plans for 2, and then turned out to be a twofer on the last one.
Yeah. Talk about a circus. That's great. Well, it's really beautiful to hear dad showing up. And one of my last questions is, how do you balance? I mean, we've sort of touched on it a little bit, but are there some things that are like your non-negotiables for keeping the balance of your life between being, a dad and showing up for those for the women in your life and for yourself? I mean,
Yeah,
for the family in your life and yourself.
yeah. I refuse to work at night.
Mm,
Won't do it.
beautiful.
There was I'll get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and start hunting.
Mm,
And but once it gets to 4 or 5, I cannot be out hunting anymore. Um, and yeah, I think that's a hard set rule. Um, I don't miss significant life events, even if it's for a big professional offer. And it's if the people in my life and family are more important than those professional opportunities, and professional opportunities always come along. Life events, you miss them. So I don't do that either.
mm, beautiful. And if what are some ways? What's the best way to get a hold of you if someone wanted to talk to you? As a therapist or have you come speak or as an author?
Sure,
What's the best way to reach out to you?
sure. You can got a couple different websites that you can check
Hmm.
out. There's logancohen.com, pretty easy to remember. Just my name.com. And then there's another website that I created in 2019 called the Balanced Man Plan. And that's where I house a collection of self-guided coaching plans that I created specifically for men that ended up being the launching ground for the book that I wrote. Um,
Ah, very
yeah,
cool. I love that. Well, I'm definitely going to check out the book.
Cool. Thanks.
Again, which is called, remind us, oh, how to human up in modern society, and how to heal yourself and save the world. I love that. So I'll check out that book and these, 'cause I'm building a new men's program myself. Dude
Nice.
School is in the making to be
Dude
released
school.
soon. And I actually taught a workshop called Man Up about bringing that human side to it. So I just feel a lot of resonance here. And if there's any way I can serve and support you and your community and what you're up to in the world and help getting your voice out there, please let me know. And if you're ever in the New York area, want to make some music or hang out, also let me know.
Dude, I love that. Thank you.
I really appreciate your time for being so generous here. We really, really appreciate you. And for everyone who's listening, please follow Logan and please let us know what resonated. You know, one of the ways we can share this medicine with each other is by speaking our voice. So even saying, hey, I love this. Hey, I learned this. That really helps move the needle forward in all of our lives and raise the awareness together. So please give yourself that gift. Give another man or human this gift of sharing this medicine with them if it resonated. If you feel like someone needs to hear this, more men need to hear it, please share it. That is what makes the world go around. So thank you so much to each and every one of you. Thank you, Logan. And dudes, go love yourselves. You're getting well.